Welcome to NFM Now, a podcast dedicated to mortgage industry-related news and information, showcasing interviews with some of the top thought leaders in home lending. NFM Now is a production of NFM Media, a division of NFM Lending. NFM Now is hosted by NFM Lending's Chief Business Development Officer, Greg Scher.
Welcome to another edition of NFM Now. I'm Greg Scher, joined by NFM Branch Manager Ryan Sandell out of Tempe, Arizona. Ryan, thanks so much for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for your time.
Yep, we're so happy to have you here. We're going to go over builder business. It is a lost art and an unknown art to so many. We're going to get into how to get it in a moment. First of all, you've been doing it since when?
Since about 2010.
So you've got 6.5, 7 years under your belt doing builder business, and you do roughly how many units a year that are tied to builders?
I'd say at least 300 units a year.
Wow, that's a huge number. So roughly 25 a month. And I should mention that as a branch of NFM, you close between 60 and 75 loans a month. So kudos to you. How do people get into builder business? People that are just used to the more traditional channels of realtor engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the toughest part is because most of these builders will have their own in-house lender. But, what that means to me is that they are going to take the cream of the crop loans, and obviously a builder side of it, they want to close as many loans as possible. So any value you can provide outside of their own lender and their overlays is a huge asset to them.
How do you wiggle your toe in the door? Take us back to when you got started. What was your first big break?
Well, it's funny. My first big break happened to be with a realtor who got me into D.R. Horton, who's a national builder, so I think most people should know them. He told me that I was his guy, and we actually hadn't even closed a deal together, but I had marketed to him, and I ended up meeting the salespeople through him, and I didn't even close one deal with him, but I ended up making relationships with the salespeople and getting their turn-down business, and it took off from there.
And look at you now. So knowing what you know now, and obviously it's so much, what is missing? What can a lender bring to a builder that you think they're starving for? What kind of value add?
Well, listen, I think that's the key word is value, because, I mean, any lender can close loans now. We all have the same program, same rates, so it's thinking outside the box on what you can bring to them. An angle that I use and still use in recruiting my builder relationships still, even though I have them, is just making sure that I am not just receiving their loans and doing a good job there, which is obviously important, but it's also thinking outside the box as far as marketing on their behalf. I think most builders are probably not the best at marketing themselves, to the general public, and we are in the trenches with realtors trying to get as many leads as possible. So if we can bring that mentality to the builders and provide value that way, I think that's a huge step in the right direction to get a foot in the door.
That's great insight. You're listening to NFM Now with host Greg Scher. Ryan Sandell is on the line with us, a branch manager of NFM out of Tempe, Arizona, who does 300 builder-related transactions a year, just an astronomical number. Ryan, what is the cycle like of trying to woo a builder compared to the experience and cycle of wooing a real estate agent? What's the horizon like in terms of time?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to take some time for sure. And it's going to take some really rough business at first to kind of get yourself in the door and gain that trust, because again, everybody wants the good deals. And, you're not going to get that right off the bat. So you're going to have to spend some real time with some clients who may or may not qualify at that point in time. But if you can get them in a position to buy and give them back to the builder, that's the first step in the right direction, developing that trust.
So when I think of the word builder, I guess it could mean two different things. You're either building one house or you're building a community. Do you go after both?
I only go after your builders who will build multiple units per month. Otherwise, the onesie twosie builders, I think that's probably, that's more on the realtor relationship side, which is still important. But, to go over your multi-subdivision builders who are going to do at least 100 to 150 units a year, that's where you want to really spend the time.
And so if you go after a realtor and you get their business, maybe the realtor is doing 2 or 3 transactions a month. it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if you get a builder, you're on the line if you do a good job for so many more potential transactions.
Yeah, it's endless. And what I do with my staff is, in the communities that they have open, we're going to go sit at those communities every single weekend. And what that does for us is two things. The first is, obviously, when buyers are there, we can qualify them on the spot, which builders love. Number two, 60% of those people are not buying those houses, but they're still qualified buyers. And of that 60%, 40% of them don't have realtor relationships yet. So it's a whole nother thing that we can expand on as far as getting these referrals that we can hand out to our referral partners, which are realtors, or obviously getting people qualified on the spot to get a builder pre-qualification letter right then and there, because we don't want people to leave without knowing that they're qualified for that house.
Wow, what a gold mine that is. Never even thought of that you can turn some of those people into qualifiers for a mortgage down the road. Maybe even just a traditional house that's already on the market through an agent that that you can link them up with that agent or something like that. So, Ryan, how do people go find a builder community? What's the first piece of advice you'd give someone who's looking to get into that game?
Well, I think us as lenders probably are all too familiar with losing deals to builders that have their own lenders. So I think we all know of the culprits that are in our community that we lose deals to because we can't compete with the incentives that builders give. So that's the first thing, is just finding out who the competition is that you're dealing with out there. And then, not looking at it as a threat, but trying to find a way to provide an asset for them to be able to do this. And so the big thing for me is I talk to the salespeople. That's where they're the ones, and different builders, builders are different. Some are very controlling on where they send their outside business, and some are not. So the better you can develop relationships with those salespeople want to make just as much money as the realtor out there. So they want to find these, once they find an interested buyer, they need to turn them into a transaction. So if we can help them do that, then great. And, the next piece to that, and how, it kind of helped me get more and more builders, is these salespeople for builders usually change their employment every couple years. So, if you make relationships with certain salespeople and then they go to a different builder, guess what? You already have a foot in the door with a new builder. So it's important to keep up those relationships with these salespeople.
And for those people who hear those salespeople, you use that term, those salespeople, it could be foreign to them. So if you could, even though it's very simple, walk us through what a salesperson does with a builder.
So salespeople are the one or two people that are sitting in the model home, 7 days a week, waiting for people to walk in the door so they can sell them a home. And that's exactly what they do. So any assets you can provide them, whether it be realtor relationships, marketing, anything like that, would be super beneficial to them, and they will return the favor.
Incredible knowledge about how to get builder business from NFM branch manager Ryan Sandell out in Tempe, AZ. Ryan, thanks a ton for your time. This is going to be very valuable to the field.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, pleasure having you. This is Greg Scher. You've been listening to another edition of NFM Now. See you next time.